I'd like to encourage you,
Me or the listeners?
Fire of the Bolt,
Okay.
to use your mic effectively this evening because we have a visitor and it's 25 past midnight as we start.
Okay.
I don't mean just don't talk. I mean just get up close and personal with your cockwomble. I mean your microphone. We could do an ASMR episode.
Oh, that'd be a bit weird.
You're a bit weird.
You have to whisper.
You want to do the whole I don't think I can.
I don't think you can speak.
What's happening? That's really putting me off. There's a load of trees being planted on your computer screen.
Well, I can search something or move it to Google if you want.
We're talking about Ecosia, search engine that plants trees for you. And it counts how many trees there are. So nearly 77.5 million trees planted. Stop doing that into the mic. It's annoying me.
Well, we're not even started yet.
I know, that's annoying me as well. Shall we begin?
Do you want to begin?
Me?
Is that what you really want?
Hello, Internet.
No.
Oh, I thought you were offering to let me begin.
No, I was trying to psychoanalyze you. Clearly it didn't work.
Or psychoanalyze.
No. Much rather not. Hello Internet, I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with
And welcome.
unique ways to introduce each episode.
And
I've
welcome,
been a pirate twice now.
Shut the fuck up. And welcome to episode 51.
Pardon me. Yes.
High quality as always.
50 of the oneness.
Do you ever speak any sense?
No, I'm not a hundredth of a dollar or a hundredth of a euro either.
Okay. Anyway,
I feel like this is going to be a weird episode because we haven't even started yet. We have actually started,
yes,
haven't we?
we have.
Yeah, but it's nearly midnight, and it's just
I woke up at 5:45 today.
this evening.
And yeah,
I'd been out, driven Nienna into Aberdeen,
yeah.
been and performed at a concert
And you
for
know
the
what?
afternoon, and came home at tea time, and he was still in fucking bed.
You still had to come into my room to wake me up. I probably would have been asleep until now if you hadn't.
Probably. I mean, it had only been nearly 14 hours, had it, that you were asleep?
Yeah. I mean, I'm worried
You on
that
drugs?
at some point, like, if I move out, that I'll just, like, sleep for 3 days and no one will even notice. Just start hibernating.
You know, like back in the good old days, they used to know that there's something up when the milk bottles started piling up on the doorstep. But now,
I mean, it might
how
just
would
be
they know?
Amazon deliveries that start piling up. Although they just don't deliver it then, and you can be in and they won't deliver it as well. But whatever.
Are you expecting a lot of Amazon deliveries then?
I mean, it is Christmas, but I think I've got most of them. Anyway, you know what happened recently?
Yeah, the world fucked itself up the arse.
It wasn't particularly the world, but
My world did.
the country.
The country.
So,
I don't know what this episode is going to be, but there's going to be
this shit.
5 more. It's going to get fucking worse. This isn't what we've had before.
Well, it's the
We've
biggest
got
majority they've had since the 80s.
Do you know what it's like to me? I mean, you know, when the 80s came along, we knew that the Tories were shit then, but we didn't really know how bad Maggie Thatcher was going to be. But it's like starting that all over again, but knowing beforehand what it's like and voting for it.
Yeah, well, I saw this thing that I think it was on Twitter, basically pointing out that trying to use that people lied as why you shouldn't vote for them is no longer going to work, because people actually like being lied to, even if they know about it.
Do you think it's a bit like S&M?
No, I think they just like being told that everything's going to be alright, everything's fine, we'll just sort it out for you, rather than actually being told the truth.
We're going to get onto religion damn quick, aren't we?
Well, yeah. And
there was an excellent one. You wouldn't have seen this because I put it on Facebook. You carry on talking while I find it, because I wanted to tell you the quote. It was funny.
If you sort of don't believe all the doom and gloom about what's to come and what's already come, I'd like to bring attention to the decision by the Department for Work and Pensions about Star Stuff's disability.
Oh, I want to interject with Man Behaving Dadly first.
Well, do that.
Okay. Man Behaving Dadly, highly recommended page on Facebook. Meme posting. I still think my favourite thing that's ever happened to me on the internet is the time a guy said, people change their minds when you show them facts. And I said, actually, studies show that's not true, and linked 2 sources. And he said, yeah, well, I still think it works. Says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the shit show that arrived on our doorstep through our letterbox today.
They sent 600 pages. By the way, that was 300 pages, but it was copied because they sent one copy to the Orbiter.
Yeah, I've been assigned as representative so that I'm allowed to speak in the interviews that I go in with her.
And they also sent a copy to Star Stuff as well, to the same address. They didn't really check that. And also, the envelope's condition.
They were open. I'm surprised the pages actually made it at all.
Yeah.
Because they were completely open and ripped down both sides.
And to my knowledge, these are... I mean, you would expect these to be confidential documents.
Yeah, they don't even... I mean, they have detailed...
Like, it does genuinely look like someone's cut them open.
Detailed information, including transcripts of medical interviews and assessment interviews. And actually, I think they've probably got national insurance numbers on them and stuff as well. And they don't even say private and confidential on the outside. Now, Star Stuff's point was that the Department for Work and Pensions think those envelopes are fit for purpose. So that's obviously how they treat people as well.
I just...
Despair.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of at this point where I'm not even able to be angry at it anymore. It's just hopelessness. Well,
I mean, I can't get past... I don't know what it is that... Because to me, either people don't believe what they don't want to believe, or the priority is all fucked up. You know, the way the country has gone, is it really the case that the majority of people in the United Kingdom are more concerned with leaving Europe than people staying alive? Like people who are suffering, disabled people, and people in hospitals, and is it just selective censorship of the truth within their brains? I genuinely don't get it. I physically felt sick. I was in the car on the way home when the exit poll came out, and I physically felt sick because it's just a mixture of I'm just disgusted. I am disgusted with what the UK has become, and it's reached the point now after a few couple of days, that I just thought, you know what, if that's what the country's priorities are, and leaving the European Union is more important than anything else, including people's lives, then fucking give them what they want. Give England what they want. let them leave Europe and we'll fuck off. Scotland will just fuck off.
The majority actually still didn't vote for this, though. That's the kicker.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, first past
under
the
our
post.
system, 40%.
You gotta give it to him, though. I mean, the Tories have played a blinder on this. They've actually effectively used first past the post to get the referendum through, and to give themselves a majority that, I mean, 5 years of pretty much uncontested Tory decisions now.
Yeah.
And the only way I think you can possibly justify it is if you tell yourself and argue with the people around you who disagree with you that they were actually telling the truth.
43%.
That they're actually going to do any of the bullshit that they've said they're going to do when they never have before.
No.
I mean, it's like an abusive relationship.
Well, here's the thing. They repeatedly lied during the campaign. This isn't just Boris Johnson that's lying here. They doctored videos. They refused to turn up to interviews, which admittedly isn't lying, but it's mainly just not turning up so you don't tell more lies. They actually faked a website for the Labour manifesto. They also don't remember what else they did. There was something. Well, the whole thing with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yeah,
saying that people should have common sense, and that's why they didn't survive Grenfell.
I'm not having any of this bullshit about they're all as bad as each other.
Yeah, it's not just.
No,
it's not.
They're
just,
not. Yes, they've all got faults, but they are in no way, shape, or form as bad as each other.
No, it's
unless you really don't understand the meaning of the word bad.
If you really think that everyone in politics is as bad as Boris Johnson, then I don't understand why you'd still be alive.
Well, quite a lot of people aren't.
No, 130,000 people died. That's the estimate under the Tories' austerity policies for the last 9 years. That's blood directly on their hands.
That's almost filling the old Wembley Stadium twice. I really don't know if we're actually going to get onto the subject of what this podcast is supposed to be about, because I can't. We're still in the shock period at the moment, I think.
Do you want to actually make this an election special and we can just move this subject onto our next podcast?
Well, we can do. I mean, Customer is Always Weird have actually done an election special, but I think it was pre-election. It wasn't. I haven't listened to all of it yet. I do apologise, Ryan and co. But he's shit scared. He's diabetic, and I mean, obviously, it's a Brexit issue that we're talking about there. But I mean, there are people all up and down the country that are actually fucking scared out of their minds at the moment. And the annoying thing to me is that the whole arrogance of it. I mean, we watched the alternate election coverage on Channel 4, didn't we? I don't know if any of this is available still online on the Channel 4 on demand or anything like that, if you can go back and watch any of it, but if there's any footage on YouTube or anything. But the section with Boris Johnson's dad on the panel, it was disgusting to watch. I mean, I actually thought that he must be a fairly okay guy, because Extinction Rebellion had him talking in Trafalgar Square when they had the demonstrations and that.
To be fair, I think that seems... I mean, to me, it seems like something that should be...
But I assumed that because he maybe
like
has...
a fairly base thing that, not wanting the planet to die is the base level for decency. Above that, you kind of need to go a bit above that.
See, the thing is, there's a difference between not wanting the planet to die and actually realising and enacting what would be necessary to prevent it, rather than just saying the slogans and stuff. I mean,
Well, he was
Boris
just
Johnson
there to do a speech, wasn't he? Though.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just all shady as fuck. It's just, I really have had, and to the point where like Craig's saying things like, give Scotland their freedom. You got people from England who actually want to move here, because it's not just a case of, well, are we going to be given a chance to leave? I know there was demonstrations that night in Glasgow on the 13th, Friday the 13th, basically saying, not my Prime Minister. There's demonstrations being planned for the 11th of January, and I'm seriously considering going, and I think you've said you wouldn't mind that at all either.
No.
I can't. The thing is that's where we're at now, at the beginning of all of this, and he's just going to keep putting his foot down and saying no. He actually said, I heard on the news that he'd actually said that if he gets a letter from Nicola Sturgeon requesting, because she's going to go through all the procedure of drafting the sort of legal documents required to set out the case for another referendum and send them down to Westminster, and Boris Johnson has said that if he receives that, he's not even going to open it, he's just going to return it unopened.
It's been 5 years, we've had 3 elections and a massive referendum. 3 elections, it does seem like way too big for 5 years.
Yeah. But now he's got this 80 majority, he's got a guaranteed 5 years.
Well, yeah, because
if he wants it.
Unless he massively fucks it up, there is no way that it's going to be.
The only thing that can fuck it up for him now is his own party.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get that many. You're not going to get that many rebels.
No, with that,
you get some backbenchers, but
yeah, with that they can afford to sack them. It's not like, oh, we can rebel and you have to do what we say because we're holding you hostage here. No, with that kind of majority,
do you know on Sky News today
they can do whatever they want.
I actually heard it referred to the SNP's success in Scotland being referred to in this phraseology. The words used were that Nicola Sturgeon has managed to tighten the SNP's grip on Scotland. It's like, that's really not what it is. It's not a tightening of a grip.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the kind of word painting that you kind of, and it does, you might think that's kind of petty, but it is a very negative image, that, isn't it? Tightening your grip on a population.
I mean, most of the focus, because we both stayed up to watch the election. I think I did pass out about an hour and a half before I had to get up to go to school.
Yeah, it was around about between 6 and past, I think.
But a lot of the focus then was what Labour has to do, because whilst the big story is the Tory majority, the bigger story is actually how many seats Labour lost, because it's their worst result since 1935.
And the Scottish Conservatives are actually trying to make out that the only reason the SNP got gains was because the Labour vote collapsed.
Yeah, they lost half of their seats. Actually, more than half, because they only had 13 seats before.
I just think it's poetic that basically our constituency sacked the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've mentioned him before.
I mean, I'm very annoyed that
Goodbye, Colin, you fucking wanker.
I'm very annoyed that this is the main area.
Excuse my
area
language,
in the northeast is the main Tory area of Scotland. We did manage to sack him, as you said, but by a narrow margin. And
yeah, it was only about 800 votes, I think, was it?
Something like that. Really, in quite a lot of places this election, every vote counted. So, I mean, the vote's already passed, but in future elections, make sure you fucking vote.
Yeah, there were another couple of constituencies that the Conservatives did hold, which are equally as close the other way. There are only about 900 votes in it. I mean, there are some people who specifically voted SNP because they wanted to stop Brexit or because they didn't want Boris Johnson in, but still don't want a second independence referendum. But see, the other thing I read today was somebody was pointing out, well, yeah, the SNP only got 45% of the vote, though. So what's to say that they're going to get any more than that in a second independence referendum? But then somebody else pointed out, yeah, but in an election, 16 and 17-year-olds don't get the vote. In a referendum, they would. So there's every possibility that
16 and 17-year-olds, I mean, I haven't seen the direct statistics, but I would be willing to bet are far more likely to vote for independence.
And certainly to vote against Conservative rule.
Definitely.
But I mean, it's not. This is not respect in any way, shape, or form. But you've got to concede that he played a blinder, literally. But
also included in the lies, because my mind sort of blanked, that 50,000 more nurses, which included 19,000 that they're going to somehow retain. And also the 40 new hospitals figure, which is actually 6, which is, I mean, incredible that you managed to fuck it up that much.
I mean, going back, I know it's an old argument, but going back to the old Brexit thing, this whole will of the people bullshit, it's like, but I was thinking to myself, it really is about whether or not the referendum should have been called in the first place.
It just seems...
Is my mic working? Yeah, it is. Sorry. Oh, it's just turned right down. So you'll be able to hear me properly now.
Okay.
It'll still come through.
Hopefully that doesn't fuck things up.
It just won't be as good quality because it'll be coming through your mic as much. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, it's about whether or not the referendum should have been called in the first place and what question should have been asked and how it should have been framed and what criteria should have been set for a particular viewpoint to have been successfully agreed on. Because if you put a referendum out tomorrow asking the population whether or not they should give everybody who votes £1 million, who's going to vote no? But that doesn't mean it's practical or possible or sensible. But it's the will of the people. I'm sure, whether with a referendum or not, I'm sure the people across the country would love to be given £1 million each. Who would say no to that? But
I mean, it is about half the world economy, but actually more than that.
Is it?
I don't know. It just sort of, you can't help but just be depressed at it all. I mean, the only positive I can see this election is that SNP have increased the majority, which means that at least we can get out of this mess. Maybe. I mean, it seems really dumb as well that the Tories can just say no, even if loads of people want it.
Yeah, that's I have a friend who you know very well, who's very in favour of independence and is also English. Who a certain German teacher, who put a post out saying, it was just one of these memes that you share, and it was basically saying, we don't need permission to hold our, to decide to rule ourselves, if you like. And while I would agree that we shouldn't need permission to make that choice, actually the truth is we do need that permission. Legally, we do need it. But that's not I understand the sentiment that that's not the way it should be. But it's not true. We do. Under law at the moment, we need Westminster's permission to decide for ourselves.
Yeah.
So is that deciding for yourself?
Seems kind of
off. If we were likely to decide against Westminster, then that's the only reason that they should be scared of giving us that choice, surely. But then again, it was the same thing with the second referendum, wasn't it? It was like, well... One thing, though, somebody did point out that Alex Salmond, who's a cock as well, had said it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the first independence referendum.
I think we have this weird attitude of, referendum shouldn't happen that much. But it's a most democratic thing to do.
The thing is, I don't remember him specifically using those words once in a lifetime. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I do remember it being said that it was a once in a generation. Now, to me, you and your sister have both turned 16 since that happened. So to us, that you are the next generation. That's, in fact, if you're talking about generations, literally the next day could be the next generation if someone turns 16, it's like, but I don't think you can argue that it's not a justifiable reason to hold a second independence referendum if the circumstances have completely changed.
Which they definitely have.
Especially if one of the main arguments against independence the first time was a point that has been completely nullified now.
Going from a fairly liberal coalition to a conservative majority, plus having a Brexit vote that I don't think was even discussed back at independence other than by people in UKIP and among Tory advisors.
Well, they tried to convince people to stay in the UK because it was they were saying it was the only way that Scotland could guarantee staying in Europe.
Yeah. But now it seems almost certain that we'll leave.
But any time anyone points that out to the Conservatives, it's swept under the carpet. Like so many other things, it's completely...
It's sort of, we said that in the past, therefore it doesn't matter.
But this is that attitude I was talking about with Boris Johnson's dad.
Yeah.
There is that kind of arrogant dismissal of other people's concerns. Like, you're just being stupid, you're just being overdramatic, or it's like anything that's not in keeping with their own viewpoint is just kind of sneered at and dismissed.
Yeah. By the way, here I've got the some of the stats for the actual election. And by the way, turnout 67.3%. That's 1.5% down from last time. That's disturbing. That only about 2/3 of this country have actually voted for this.
I think that's quite high, though. Traditionally for elections, I think if you get more than half of the people turning out, they tend to think that's a good turnout.
Jesus. Well, it's just that I think still, I told this about the 2017 election, people who didn't vote outnumber the people that voted for Tories.
Yeah.
There's also been only a 1.2% swing towards the Tories.
Swing. I'd just like to point out, though,
and they've gained 48 seats from that. By the way, the total number of seats is about 650.
While I was saying about the dismissive, kind of arrogant tone that you get when people question Conservatives, I know that seems like petty. I know it seems like I'm picking on just like a kind of a character trait, if you like. But
I see it lots.
But the reason that I bring it up is because it betrays their attitude in a political sense, in that it's not just about the way you conduct yourself and your mannerisms when you're talking to someone. It's how you treat people.
Yeah, so to bring it to the decision by the Department for Work and Pensions on status of disability, I mean, you sent them a letter basically going through decisions that they made that were, a lot of them were at 0.
Yeah.
And it was like out of 8, out of 10, out of 12, that sort of thing.
I basically addressed each section with the score that they'd given, pointed out the justification they had given for that score, pointed out why their justification had been lies based on the transcript of the audio recording that we'd made on the day itself. And I would suggest to anyone who's going for PIP for the first time, do an audio recording and be prepared for a kind of a courtroom battle, basically, because they will do anything they possibly can.
Right, so just one example. This is from the 4th paragraph of the bundle of paper they sent to us. It said that Suttoth could drive. Now, while she does have a driver's license, she's on medication that would prevent her from driving. If she didn't take that medication, she would be in too much pain to drive anyway. And even with the medication, without its side effects, and with the condition without its pain, or without the pain that would be removed by the painkillers, she would be too dizzy to drive anyway. It is very dangerous to say that she could drive, because in these circumstances, it's dangerous to the people around her and to her if she did drive. So saying that she can drive is A, complete lie based on what she said, and B, extremely dangerous.
Yeah. There were a couple of other things that leap out at me. I mean, these are just 3 instances that kind of are particularly heinous. There are multiple things about sort of feeding yourself and stuff like that. While they're lies, they're not putting other people's lives at risk. But things like they claimed that she, with planning and following a journey and getting places, they said that she could go to the doctors and to her mum's, without any problem, completely ignoring the fact, the other half of the sentences that were in that interview, that the only way she can do that is if she's accompanied by somebody who drives her there, and that we can park right next to the door. Because the third thing that I was on about, it was clearly stated that she could only walk at a struggle and a push on a good day between, say, 25 to 30 metres at most. And yet that in itself would give her the enhanced mobility rate and give her an award. They've claimed that she can walk 50 to 100 metres, despite the fact that it's clearly stated in the interview that it's only 25 to 30. So they just lie. And the only reason that I can possibly see that they can not get away with it, but the only reason they can justify actually doing that as interviewers and assessors is that they've been told by the people that are setting the criteria and the targets that they've to do everything they possibly can to not give an award, no matter what that means. I mean, the psychological stuff, that's just ridiculous. When you see some of the stuff that comes out of mental health charities, and they come out with some of the bullshit that they're talking about, not having any visible outside evidence of anxiety or stress, and it's like, do you even understand the nature of anxiety and stress and depression?
I mean,
it's inhumane.
This is made more difficult. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult if you actually examined what was stated, and what's quite clear just from actually seeing her by anyone that knows anything, really. I mean, the person that actually does the assessment doesn't see the claimant, which seems ridiculous, it's like passed on. So you get the person that's actually doing the interview, and then it passed on to someone that makes the actual decision. Probably,
yeah, they never
never
actually meet them.
Yeah,
and if it wasn't for the fact that I don't know if they listened to it, but if it wasn't for the fact that we'd made an audio recording of it, they wouldn't know what was said apart from what the assessor types into the form. But I just want to I struggle. I do my best to try not to be personal and attack people, but general public kind of. But I'm not going to apologise for this, but I'm just angry, and I'm going to read a quick quote from George Orwell. And if you voted Tory, you're just going to have to deal with this. But a people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices. So if you voted that way, you are guilty of this just as much as the people that you helped to put in power. I would apologise for that if I felt that I needed to. And I know that this is the kind of society that they've deliberately engendered. It's divisiveness. It's turning people against people. And they're succeeding. I hold the people who voted for this regime just as culpable. Uncomfortable truth.
I've just gotten up the poverty statistics for the UK, and a third of children are in poverty. I'm wondering if I'm one of them.
Well, you will be, yeah. I mean, especially
right now.
Because what date is it? No, it's now the 14th, isn't it? In less than a week's time, we are going to
when
lose...
When this podcast goes out.
When will it be? The 20th is when the deadline is. And they haven't told us yet whether or not this is actually going to happen, because the Department for Work and Pensions don't care. But as things stand at the moment, as far as we know, we're going to lose a quarter of our income on the 20th of December. And I honestly don't know what's going to happen after that. So yeah, you are. I mean, what is poverty defined as? Because I know the UK government has been held guilty by, is it the United Nations?
I believe so.
For crimes against humanity, basically.
Well, they sent a special rapporteur to basically see what was going on here and examine the state of our society. Okay, I'm going to see if I can find... Here we go, defining poverty. 2 broad things you need to decide when defining poverty: what you're going to look at in people's lives and how you're going to find the threshold between who's in poverty and who isn't. Poverty is not quite the same thing as having low income. People and families can have different fixed costs to contend with, as well as childcare, housing, and costs associated with disability.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They quite often define
which would
poverty
affect
in
us
terms
quite a bit, since you have... Well, I mean, we're not technically children anymore, but we don't make income of our own.
No.
And both me and Star Stuff has a disability.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think I have actually considered this, and if that's what it came down to, I think the only choice that I would have to keep enough money coming in, practically speaking, would be to basically leave you guys to it and go off working cruise ships as a musician full time.
But
which would basically mean you wouldn't see me for about 4 to 6 months, which means you guys, who I care for most of the time,
additionally,
which is why I can't work.
Star Stuff requires more care than that, because unless we significantly change our plans, me and Yenna are off in education.
But even if you didn't, don't take this the wrong way, but I wouldn't consider that you could. I mean, I know you can cook, but I mean, when you're talking about doing that and all the housework and the laundry and the washing up and everything while doing your exam year and dealing with autism and hypermobility.
Yeah, it's sort of...
it's a fucking joke. It's just ridiculous.
I've got enough of my own shit to deal with.
Well, we all have.
Well, yeah.
No, I don't mean to belittle your shit. You know, I know how that can feel when you're bringing up your own problems and somebody goes, oh, like if you've got a headache and somebody goes, oh yeah, I've had a really bad headache, and it's like, this is my fucking time to suffer. Stop hijacking my pain. But no.
I just don't understand how people continually vote for this. And either they must just not know what's going on or not believe the extent of it, at which point it's sort of given the information available and how much it's in the news.
Well, that's abuse by neglect.
You have to be ignoring it a fair amount or just not. You must just live on a rock. Under a rock. I said in a rock.
But if you were ignoring it to that extent, you wouldn't even know there was an election. Or if you did, you wouldn't be one of the people that would actually bother to vote because...
Well, I think a lot of people just say, oh, I don't vote because I don't know what's going on here. It's just sort of, well, look it up.
Yeah,
it's not that hard.
It is, it is worrying.
It's just
to
disturbing that the default, we have two positions, it seems. Either I don't care or fuck them.
Yeah.
When exposed to this information.
Or I don't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, at least with disbelief, you can sort of say, this should be unbelievable because this just shouldn't be happening in any society that claims to be just.
But if there is something that bleak that it is that shocking that you don't believe it, is it not important enough to actually try and find out? You know, because there are plenty of resources to actually get to the truth out there without having to do like university degrees or anything. There are fact-checking organisations which are reliable that we can access.
Oh, but I was going to bring this up earlier. Another one of the Tory lies, one of the big ones, is that they posed as a fact-checking organisation during a debate.
Yeah, but they say that was
which is
clearly their account.
Fraud. Still. That is just fraud.
Yeah.
It wasn't clearly their account because you can't see that, and I don't think if you asked that many people, they'd know what CCHQ was before this story broke.
I didn't.
No, you listed that as GCHQ, and I was very confused when you told me that.
Yeah.
Because they
I know what HQ means, but...
a lot of cryptology, specifically during the war that I was aware of, but they still exist now.
I mean, we moan and we whinge about our situation, but I mean, really, we are actually luckier than a lot of people. There are a lot of people that are suffering even more than we are. I mean, we're not really suffering. It's just that we're continually stressed and worried about the future. We're holding on financially just about. It's just... It is.
We're sort of
you just kind of.
We're on the poverty line. We're not under it.
No. I mean, we're not. when you see people that are having to go to food banks every week and having to starve themselves to feed their children, or homeless people, or people who are dying, whether it be through the lack of provision in the NHS or just suicide because they can't cope anymore. I mean, that is obviously worse than what we're going through, but
that may change.
That comes from a situation where things get worse and worse,
And whilst I understand that there are issues with Labour and other parties that are offering something much better than this, I just don't. I mean, it's this sort of people saying that Labour is racist because of anti-Semitism. Now, whilst Labour has a problem to do with anti-Semitism, I don't believe that the party itself or most of its prominent members, like the people at the top in charge, are racist or anti-Semitic.
No, see, this is that thing, like,
however,
there is this...
I do believe a lot of the people at the top of the Tories are actively racist, and in their manifesto, several either openly racist or policies that will disproportionately affect people to do with race.
I don't know whether or not we mentioned this before, but if you remember when we went for your... I mean, this is not the Tory party, this is just a fucking ridiculous thing. The Disability Assessment Centre that we went to for your PIP assessment, that the disabled toilet is behind a locked security door that you have to go to an unmanned reception desk to get a key to access it.
Regular toilet wasn't under this?
Now, if that's not disability discrimination in the Disability Assessment Centre for...
I mean,
PIP
that's just some delicious irony for you, isn't it? Oh, another Tory lie.
It's...
the child who I think
you wouldn't believe it if you wrote it, would you?
Lying on the floor in A&E on a pile of coats because there were no beds available. There were chairs available, but lying on the floor on chairs and not chairs and coats, on just coats is more comfortable. They said that image was, well, not the Tories specifically, but this was closely linked to the Health Minister, Matt Chorley, where someone said this was a lie, that this image was fabricated and posed. And through a sort of link of, I think the person that had posted this was the wife of a Tory councillor. I'm trying to remember. And that Tory councillor was, well, a Tory to begin with, but also Facebook friends with Matt Chorley.
Who is Matt Hancock?
Matt Hancock, not Matt Chorley. Matt Chorley is, I think, a journalist from the Times, but
the other one,
a bit of
the other thing that came out, I think it was today or yesterday, I read it, was that for the first time ever, every single A&E department has failed to meet its waiting time targets in the country of 4 hours.
And
they've not even had a majority.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, try to, and whilst this is a discussion that should probably go on between the people that are invested in the politics of it, this isn't a discussion that should go on between people that are invested in the actual morality of the policies. Like, sure, Labour didn't convince enough people, but their policies were moral. They actually cared for people, and I think that's what mattered. It's this sort of confusion between electability and how good an actual policy is.
Yeah.
Because you can lie barefaced, which the Tories absolutely did.
See, the thing is, if you look at the stuff that the Tories are promising, it's actually, it can be fairly attractive if you believe them. But I can't understand how anyone can possibly believe them.
Well, yeah, but there's also, even if you believe them, and I think this is the thing, it's sort of these vague numbers that people can't really quantify in their heads as to what that actually means. that you can hear the policy from one party and not realise, okay, another party is offering way more that's actually adequate. They don't really hear the criticism of the policy. They say 50,000 more nurses. Oh, that sounds like a good thing, which it is, but it should be something that we already have.
And even though
and this was one of my favourite, and I say favourite, I mean sort of most funny things, and funny in a horrible way, that one of their policies is to, I think it was stop car parking charges for nurses and the families of terminally ill patients. Now, whilst it's good that you're stopping that, why was that a thing in the first place? You said, you've only been in power for 9 years. What? Why?
Well, I have to point out to all you people that may be suffering south of the border that parking is free in hospitals in Scotland.
Who is it? That's good. You know who did that? The fucking SNP, because they have
Do you know what else they
control
did?
of health and education.
You know what else they did? They
Free tuition fees?
Oh yeah, there's that. Yeah. But also they generously paid, as they do every 6 months, they paid £226 something into our accounts, in the form of the carers allowance supplement, which you get in Scotland if you're on carers allowance, because the Scottish government think that the carers allowance which Westminster give out is more than 450 quid a year, too little. So they give you a bit more up here. No prescription charges.
Yep.
Now, why the fuck would we want to stay part of the UK? I mean, they're wanting, the SNP are wanting to try to put pressure on. In fact, before the election happened the way it did, they were talking about making part of any coalition deal or alliance deal that they did with anyone being a condition that these kinds of policies were enforced or enacted in the other countries in the UK, because they want the rest of the UK to benefit from the same kind of...
Labour, whilst they weren't saying yes, did keep, at least open to the possibility of it. And I don't think many people were paying, other than people in Scotland were voting SNP, were really paying that much attention to it as to who was actually giving independence.
I don't get... See, the thing is as well, a lot of the time when people are arguing some of these points...
I mean, that's the thing as well. It is only a vote. It's not just saying, okay, you'll be independent if you do this.
People sometimes argue points that I don't actually understand the point of their argument. Like one of the criticisms of Scotland going independent potentially is that if we were to rejoin Europe, we would have to take on the euro, and that's used as an argument against. It
might actually be worth more than the pound after we're through another constitutional crisis.
There is that disconnect in that it's, if somebody's using that as an argument, you'd like. I mean, my response to that is, and it's like, what is so inherently bad about that? What are you trying to point out?
I mean, just look at Ireland. It's one of the biggest success stories of Europe. I can't imagine we'd be that different.
The thing is as well, I can, if it was valid, I could understand the argument of needing to keep the economy strong and that being good for everyone. But it's only people that have money that actually see the point of keeping the value of the pound buoyant, because it doesn't matter what the pound's worth if you don't have any.
Yeah,
and in actual fact, if you're in thousands and thousands of pounds worth of debt, if the pound gets stronger, your debt gets bigger.
Yeah. If you're not trading between currencies, which is only really relevant if you're going on holiday to people of our wealth, then it has very little effect on you.
You know who that does work out well for? The bankers. Because they're the ones that you owe money to. So if the worth of what you owe them is more, those ones that fucked the world's economy and then got bailed out by the government. Oh, hang on a minute. Jesus fucking Christ.
But also, I mean, whilst I prefer, for example, the Democrats to Republicans, obviously, because of social policy, and whilst I prefer New Labour to the Tories, they're still far from anything we need. It's I think it's called neoliberalism. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it, but I don't know.
It's basically what encapsulated in politics from basically anyone that now seems sensible is under this branch. I mean, America's so neoliberal that both of its parties, I mean, this might have slightly changed with Trump because he's quite radical, fit very close to each other on a political compass, within a few squares, basically. And it's all decided by the big issue politics of gun control and...
I remembered of it earlier today, I think it was. I just looked back across the mists of time to a few years ago, and I just remember we were all saying, oh, Jesus Christ, can you fucking imagine if Trump was in power in America and we had Boris Johnson in power over here?
Yeah, I mean, if someone had told
it was ridiculous.
If someone had told you in, let's take 2013, that Boris fucking Johnson, the Mayor of London and famous haunted mop, would be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
But at that point, in 2013, if somebody had said to you that the majority of the voting public had...
it's not even the majority.
No,
it's 40,
well, right. The majority of people who could be bothered would vote to leave
again
the European Union. We'd have Boris Johnson in charge. We'd have Trump in charge. It's just... I reckon our podcast, we should just abandon the subjects and just every fortnight, I think we should just sit down and whinge the fuck out of everything. Call it whinging bollocks.
That millions of people would take to the streets because our planet is dying.
I've got a bone to pick with customer is always weird as well.
And people would just say, oh, well, they're a bit extreme, aren't they?
I've got a bone to pick with the customer is always weird.
What's that?
Because they normally do reviews, don't they? They normally do stuff about customer reviews. And their general election special, they actually said, for a change, we're not going to do customer reviews. We're just going to sit here and talk bollocks.
Should we do a review? Should we review Twitter comments?
Maybe we should. Maybe my brain's broken.
Okay, well, seeing as... I mean, I don't want to make this too long.
No, I didn't mean now. Did you mean now?
Well, let's just do this quickly.
Do you think there's reviews on the general election?
Well, no, but like...
Do you know why I think it is, though? I think it's because Craig said we're his favourite podcast on the network. We won't be anymore, though.
Why?
Because Disney Dreamgirls have joined the crew.
Oh.
They've been trying to stop the Sausage Fest for a while.
Oh.
And he's managed to get them on board. I have no idea how much he's paid them. But welcome to the whatever this is.
I'm going to look up party leaders.
Good luck, because you're going to need it. What's happening?
I'm going to look up party leaders and see people's responses to them. So let's just start with good old Bojo.
Bojo. That sounds like some kind of...
well,
I'm thinking bonobo.
I think a fair amount...
Aren't they monkeys that have orgies?
I think a fair amount of the support for Boris Johnson is just this, I find him funny bit.
What's that photo on his Twitter profile? He looks like he's actually combed his hair.
Yeah. Well, maybe as a prime minister...
What the fuck is that? On his cover picture, he looks like he has... He does look like a mop. It's a wig, surely.
He looks like a 12-year-old who's gone into school embarrassed by his bowl cut.
Do you think he's actually bald?
I doubt it. Okay, well...
it's just...
Actually, I think that's a bad idea.
The more things go on, though. I mean, when I was getting into all the Extinction Rebellion and stuff, it's a bit cold to be going out on the streets and gluing yourself to the floor now. But I know that seems a bit harsh, but I'm getting old, and I have what's that disease called?
What?
Raynaud's, where my fingers and toes start going numb if it's even slightly cold. Anyway, what was I trying to say? I just want to be an activist, just
Brexit
because everything's fucked up
before the actual election.
He's clearly trying to channel Churchill.
Get Brexit done. That's just vote Conservative.
That whole kind of stoop thing. I mean, I half expect him to turn up with a fucking pork pie hat and a cigar.
Majority Conservative government. Vote Conservative to get Brexit done. Vote Conservative.
I need more beer, by the way.
Vote get Brexit done.
It's 25 past
get
1 in the
Brexit
morning.
Done.
What are you doing?
Vote Conservative, get Brexit.
Why are you reading Boris Johnson's Twitter feed?
Brexit done. Let's get it done. Get Brexit done. It's polling day, and on polling day you vote Conservative, actually. Dogs at polling stations. Okay?
Why are you reading Boris Johnson's Twitter feed?
Because basically his entire campaign has just been get Brexit done, get Brexit done, get Brexit done. Because if he says anything else, people think, what a fucking idiot.
Yeah, but it's worked, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's the depressing thing, that you can just repeat things, lie, disappear from interviews that everyone else is doing. And somehow that makes you Prime Minister of this country.
I know people feel insulted by this attitude, but it's really, really difficult to even contemplate that the majority of the population are fucking idiots. I'm sorry that that's the way things are, but I just can't, unless it's just as easy to pull the wool over intelligent people's eyes.
They're not intelligent people, it's the British public, isn't it?
But I don't know if it is, and maybe, unless maybe I'm only mixing with people that actually are. I say the vast majority, but actually, to be honest, it doesn't need to be the vast majority, does it? It just needs to be enough to get them elected. It just needs to be more than half. But that's depressing enough as it is.
Interestingly, Blue Labour is trending now for some reason.
Blue Labour?
I'm not sure if this is meaning that the Tories have gone more left-wing to get people's votes, or...
I've been hearing this, that...
or if it's that people are not wanting Labour to go more centrist.
He's
like
going,
they did.
Now that they've got this majority, he's going very One Nation, and they're talking about the fact that now that he's got
what does One Nation Conservative mean? Because I've never known.
It's just they're trying to do this unity bollocks, bringing the country together.
Is it unionism?
No. He's basically just trying to appeal to everyone, which means basically now that they've got the majority that they've got, they can now go more centrist safely.
Has he said that, or is that what people in his party that are already more centrist are trying to hope him to do?
I don't know. This is what the thing is.
He's playing from.
Well, no, he doesn't care what his position is.
He's playing from Steve Bannon's and Trump's.
He doesn't need to be right wing. He doesn't care what his political position is. All he cares about is being in power.
Well, yeah.
So, but I think now he can deliver a Brexit that doesn't, that satisfies.
Given the sort of people that he's allying himself with, Dominic Cummings, Steve Bannon, Trump, it seems very likely that that's going to go more towards the far right than to the centre. I mean, it's just sort of follow the money.
The same people are kind of suggesting that Dominic Cummings is maybe going to be less prominent from now on. But again, this is all just punditry, isn't it? It's just kind of...
I think it's just wishful thinking, if I'm honest.
Let's face it, they can say what they like and do... They can say what people want to hear and do what they like at the same time.
I mean, I imagine Trump would have kept on most of his campaign advisors if they weren't in jail by now.
Hey, he might be impeached by the end of the year.
I wouldn't get your hopes up, because the way that politics is, he should have been impeached about a month after he got into office, because I think that's when most of the evidence actually surfaced, but should have impeached, especially after the Mueller report.
Oh, I'll tell you what I want to watch, and I've mentioned this before, The Great Hack.
Yes.
Fancy watching that after this?
Sure.
We'll be shouting at the TV. Let's get more beer.
I'm trying to remember. Is
there's still games
that
also.
about Brexit?
I'm not sure exactly. It's to do. I think it's to do with a lot to do with the Cambridge Analytica shit and Russia and Facebook data collection and all that sort of stuff. But from people that were involved at the time. It's on Netflix.
Which I figure as well. Sponsored advertisements or more targeted advertisements.
Need more beer.
80% of the lies told in those were by the
Tories, yeah, and 0% by Labour.
And I think mainly that's because Labour, I don't think, did many targeted ads, at least not that I was aware of.
Do you know what I think?
I think I would be someone that they would try to target, so I haven't seen any from them.
I don't actually get the hatred of Jeremy Corbyn, even if you don't think that his policies are deliverable. And I think that's perhaps what a lot of it is about, that people might think, well, yeah, they're very noble sentiments that everybody should be given a chance and stuff, but it's the financial cost and what it would do to the country to actually deliver these promises. I think a lot of people doubt that it's possible. But there does seem to be a lot of hatred for him as a person. And I don't actually understand that. I don't know where that comes from.
I think it's this whole campaign that started basically as soon as he became leader, that he's some sort of terrorist sympathiser.
Well, it's the anti-Semitic thing as well. You see, this came up. So I heard this said, that this thing about him referring to, and this has been brought up by environmental action groups as well, that we need a new world order. And I've heard that has often been used as a phrase, as an anti-Semitic phrase,
right?
New World Order. But I don't actually understand why that's anti-Semitic, because...
Well, it's sort of that it's sort of a phrase that's been used to describe people's belief that Jews somehow control the world today.
Again, I mean, I got that far, but I don't actually understand how being opposed to that is a bad thing. Why should, if that is the case, if Jews do run the world, then why would...
It's sort of saying that implies that you believe that they do, which they don't.
Yeah, I get that, but it does seem a little bit like methinks she doth protest too much. Like, you would only be sensitive or offended by that if it was a bit too close to the truth. I don't know. Am I getting anti-Semitic now?
Well, it's not close to the truth, though.
So why see it as an anti-Semitic thing? I mean, the New World Order to me is about, yeah, we need to rearrange the political and capitalist.
No, it's saying
regime.
That the New World Order is what we have now. It's sort of instead of the Old World Order. But new is now modern, and that's now.
Yeah, but see, to me, if somebody says we need a new world order, yes, I agree, we do need a new world order. But it's not about Jews having been in charge. It's about capitalists and bankers and.
Well, that's the thing. It's sort of
the economy being everything.
It's an important point. It's just sort of a lot of this is. I
don't care if they're Jewish or what they are. The system has been
something
bad for
dog
them.
Whistle racism, where people say certain phrases and endorse certain things that would signal to other people that know what they're talking about that they agree with them, but to normal everyday people that aren't really involved in this world,
All seems a little conspiracy theorist.
Well, it's sort of, have you? There's this symbol used by white supremacists where it's the OK sign. They like
I've seen that about.
use that to signal to other people that they
These things
agree with
don't
them.
work,
But
though.
yeah, most people wouldn't see that as that because it's not obvious. And
It becomes more. I mean that kind of thing isn't. It's like the Freemasons handshake. Everyone kind of. Well, I couldn't tell you exactly. I think I know what it is roughly now, but it's been. You can see it on TV. It's been.
yeah, but most
anyone could
people
do
don't think of that.
That's bollocks, isn't it? The Freemasons.
Well, yeah. But I would hedge a bet that a lot of Tories are members.
See now that. Yeah. Anyway, I need more beer, or we need to draw to a close. It's up to you, really. It's 25 to 2. I know this is potentially a fairly short podcast, but we haven't really held a podcast, have we? We've just whinged.
Well,
what's happening?
Happy about?
What's happening in the world apart from?
We don't really know what's gonna. We don't really know what kind of government Boris Johnson is gonna really lead.
Oh, some people died in a volcano.
Oh yeah.
Crispy.
And the only really sort of interesting bit I saw about it was a meme that said Aussies shocked as they see Prime Minister actually respond to a national disaster.
All right. Yeah, because they've had over 50 degrees. Apparently they're breaking all temperature records for the continent. They're having serious problems, aren't they, with wildfires and stuff down there?
Yeah.
And I still see China being blamed for, well, not being blamed, but basically that whole idea of, what's the point of us doing what we can when China and you see, look at the percentages, it's like, actually, we know they're developing, but China aren't producing nearly as much carbon emissions.
Yeah, well, since we actually started.
If you look at the numbers.
Yeah. Sort of per year now they might be producing more, but over like all time the US has definitely done more.
They're not. No, look at the figures. I looked at this the other day. It's because it's China and India that are kind of. I think the worry is that perhaps because they're developing, that they're.
Oh, by the way,
likely to.
This
sorry, I didn't mean to spit on your laptop.
A lot of people saying, "Oh, we're the 5th biggest economy in the world. We can do anything." Sort of bollocks. Even though Germany's bigger, and also now India's bigger, so we're the 6th biggest economy in the world.
What does biggest mean anyway? I mean, all that means is that doesn't tell you anything about what's happening inside that economy.
List of countries by
carbon dioxide emissions.
Let's do it by
2017's the nearest that we've got. So,
China is actually ahead per year.
All right, okay. I apologise.
From 2017 by about double, but per capita definitely lower.
Well, is per capita not what it's about? I mean, it would be ridiculous for us to compare the United States to the United Kingdom in overall emissions because they're a lot bigger.
Yeah.
So per capita is surely a more relevant number. What is there a per capita?
Yes,
measurement
there is
there?
over here.
So let's have a look at that. That's more relevant.
Palau's actually the biggest because a lot of the smaller places, they have a very low population, would produce a lot more per person because they kind of need a base level.
In terms of
just
big
to
countries,
function.
I mean, United Arab Emirates is in Saudi Arabia.
Hardly surprising considering it's
mostly. I
mostly
see Canada quite high though.
Yeah.
United States.
Most of these places consist of a lot of rich people.
I mean, how far down is United Kingdom? I think we're supposed to be a fairly global leader in terms of that sort of thing. That's one thing that I was hearing. That, wow, we're quite a long way down.
Yeah, we're just below Denmark and above Portugal.
And we're not what I would consider to be particularly advanced in that area, because, I mean, one thing that was
5.7 tons of CO2,
and this is something
year.
I would welcome. Is one thing that was being said was that one thing that he's going to have to do in this next 5 years is, if he's going to stand a chance of hitting any of his targets, which, as his dad says, he's supposedly very into the whole environmental thing and reducing carbon emissions, is to get the charging infrastructure out there, and really heavily invest in getting charging points heavily available.
But all of this is based in capitalism still.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, Frankie Boyle, this was on his New World Order show, interestingly. He was talking about how this idea, and this is from, I think, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, it might be from the World Bank, saying that they want, I think it was 3% growth in the global economy per year.
Well, that needs to be changed to a more kind of sustainable levelling, surely.
Well, ideally, it should be shrinking, if this is the stage we're at now.
Well, the thing is, though, I don't think it necessarily has to. I think if the wealth was distributed evenly, I think we could just level the economies at the level they're at now, and it wouldn't.
I think this idea of wealth altogether is fucked. I don't think it's something that is a good or sustainable idea.
It's difficult to envisage a different system not evolving from any kind of system of trade, though, because unless you provide all your own resources, you need to trade.
I'm talking about like a global government that actually takes into account all people everywhere, rather than drawing these truly baffling lines between peoples.
Oh, I see what you mean, like different economies in terms of nations having... So like a global currency.
Not even a currency, just none of these things that divide people, that cut them up into little groups of, okay, you earn this much, therefore you're worth this much to us. Or you earn lots, therefore we should really care about you.
But I suppose that goes back to...
I don't see this system ever developing from for a very long time from anything we've got right now, because... But
that there has to be some way of swapping resources, unless, as I say, unless you produce everything you need yourself, then there has to be some kind of trading or swapping of resources with other people. And I think that's where the whole term of a pound came from, wasn't it? Because it was a pound of a pound of sugar or something, I don't know. But, like, for instance, what my skills are, I'm a musician. I'd be shit at farming for my own food, but so for me the best thing I could do, and somebody who's really good at farming their own food might be shit at entertaining people musically. So we'd work out an arrangement.
A radical system change, where the whole society is very different. We don't have this attitude of
actually the Greens.
I only give you something if you give it to me.
I think. Yeah, I think there is a necessity for some kind of system of value assignation, but I think it has to be tempered. And the idea that the Greens, I was hearing about, that the Greens had in their manifesto seemed sensible to me, was that nobody should earn in the top levels of any organisation 10 times more than in the lowest levels.
That just seems like a given, to be honest, because...
But it's very radical compared to what we've got now.
Well, yeah.
The amount of difference it would make as well. But all the richest people with the most wealth and power would
just quickly,
object to that.
The subject of this podcast was actually meant to be risk.
Yeah, we had thought about getting Craig on, but that as an example of risk.
Why?
Well, it would be pretty risky, wouldn't it, getting him on?
Oh, I guess.
And that still might happen.
Quickly,
We're gonna...
I got an email because I'm on Labour's
Can I just
email list and...
Hang on.
Sorry. No.
Oh, it came out silent. I just wanted to do a fart into the microphone. Sorry, carry on.
What's that? The risk of you shitting yourself? I'm on Labour's email list. I think I might have signed a petition at some point. I'm not a member because I don't have enough money to donate.
I probably did.
And I think everyone just does this automatic ticking boxes to get more information. So from Jeremy Corbyn, not directly, I imagine he sent this to everyone on the emailing list, sent me a email on the subject line, the risk.
Oh, right, okay.
Dear Fiat Embril, I've been campaigning all day and the response has been amazing. This election will be close, but it's incredible to see how our people-powered strategy is paying off. Fiat Embril, polls close at 10 p.m. just a few hours from now. The only thing I can imagine that's worse than 5 more hours of a Tory government is 5 more years. It's 5 more years of food banks, 5 more years of ignoring the needs of normal people, and 5 more years of selling out our NHS to Trump and his billionaire friends. Now is our last chance to change that. Just a few hours left to vote. Have you already voted? Telling people stuff about sharing. Together we can do this.
See, I was doing the panto all week last week, and one of the things that I mean, it's not a surprise, but it's annoying that it's not a surprise. In the band green room, which is usually used for something else, this is a council building, and they had a table in there which was laid out with like trays of basic essentials, like rice and beans and tuna and just tins of food. And it's all run by an organisation called Fair Share, and it's a food bank, and you can just help yourself if you need it, and it works because I could easily have helped myself, but I didn't because I think there are people more in need than us.
As a country, 6th biggest economy in the world, we should have to do this.
That shocks me.
That our most vulnerable people in society have to turn to charities rather than
the thing as
our own government to save them from starvation.
It's standard now. It's normal that on your way out of your supermarket when you're doing your weekly shop, there is a big basket type thing for you to donate, to put food in for the local food bank. That's normal in our society today. I mean, food banks didn't even exist, until, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years, I don't know. I don't remember. They weren't around, though. It wasn't, I mean, first time people started talking about food banks, it's like, what the fuck? But now it's shocking. This is the 21st century, people. What the fuck is going on?
Whilst we would be, I think, if you tried to divide all the world's wealth between people, I think it's around about 1,000 per person. I'll have to...
The resources are definitely there for everyone.
I'll have to look it up.
Are you talking per what? What are you looking up?
I can't type.
World GDP. What?
Right. So the world overall has about 87 trillion US dollars.
Right.
And if we just very quickly divide, and I'm getting out a calculator, divide that by 7.7, I think 7.7 billion people. And we have about $1,129 per person. Now, whilst that would be quite low,
but it needs to move around for it to actually
per
be
year, by the
worth
way.
anything.
Well, yeah. But also, it's sort of, there are a lot more resources. I mean, it could be done a lot more efficiently without stripping parts of the world.
I don't understand how economy works, because I mean, obviously, there's a creation of wealth. I don't understand where that money comes from. Do you know what I mean? Economic growth. Where is that extra money coming from?
Exploiting, and we'll get onto this in our next podcast.
But that means it's not being created. Surely it's just being taken from somewhere else.
Well, there's some bits that sort of new people are made, so those people are worth something to certain people, like their skills, or new people reach an age where they're useful.
Okay, yeah, but where is that not just another person to share out the existing money between? See, I'm
the idea is that they would.
I mean, I'm assuming
contribute more through their.
See, it's that whole thing about like the quantitative easing thing. It's like they just suddenly make some more money. It's like, where does that come from? I don't understand. We just suddenly say, oh, there's like 5 million more pounds, but none of those pounds are worth as much as they were before. We just divided it up into more numbers.
All of these are just imaginary concepts. Values that are applied to. I mean, sometimes invisible resources. Which seems just ludicrous when you actually examine it.
That gets really complicated when you start talking about what is it, short selling?
Yeah, I don't even know.
You're trading future stocks. Like you're basically betting. It's basically a fucking casino, isn't it?
By the way, fun fact: John McDonnell, Shadow Chancellor, which is, by the way, the coolest job title. Has a degree, I think a master's degree in economics, and George Osborne, who largely engineered austerity, which has shaped UK politics for years and likely still will, although they keep trying to say it's ending now. We're stopping it, even though they keep doing it, as evidenced by, I mean, the decision by the DWP here. I don't think that was voted on by Parliament or stuff to do with that recently. Boris Johnson could have very easily put that through. George Osborne, who largely engineered that, failed GCSE maths.
Go figure. Anyway, I kind of need a wee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting on for 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we call things to a halt?
I suppose so, because it's like we're just going to be more the same.
Did we make this up? What am I going to call this podcast? What is this podcast?
Ooh, the camera's just gone.
Oh, there we go. Then.
Just very quickly, other parties other than Tories and Labour and SNP, Lib Dems.
How are we going to do very quickly? We used to bring in everybody else in.
Well,
just quickly, everything else.
Okay, just briefly.
That's just a different word for the same lie.
Well, it's not very quickly, it's quickly.
Are you a Tory?
Jo Swinson lost her seat.
She did. How does she sit down?
Not really.
She'll have to stand up now.
That's fun.
I
found it kind of funny.
That's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
What?
Well, she lost her seat, which means she can't stand anymore. She's not standing anymore because she lost her seat. That's the same joke said in the opposite universe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. They're gonna have to pick a new leader. but it'll probably be consistently uninteresting and a bit shit.
I know some people are being a bit critical of it, but I kind of understand why she did it. I just thought Nicola Sturgeon's response to that was hilarious. Yeah. She wasn't being nasty to Jo Swinson. No, I think she was just celebrating for winning that seat. I mean, it's going to be a target seat, isn't it? If you take out another party's leader, it's and that time in the morning, it's like, sorry, but I can't. People criticise Nicola Sturgeon by saying she looks like one of the Crankies. I can't remember her name, but it's like, well, how is that a criticism? They were entertaining. They were funny. They were real people.
I think I was watching it this evening because I woke up then. Maybe it might have been the day before. I think it was David Baddiel, who I did see on the Channel 4 election thing, saying about people need to be able to understand sort of where a joke is to do with that, and because they were tweeted out a photo of Nicola Sturgeon looking quite frowny with a bunch of SNP people behind her, saying Lulu unhappy with backing singers. I'm not sure who Lulu is, but a bunch of people took to that, trying to say a bunch of stuff and sort of like, oh, it was just a joke.
Yeah.
So anyway, also nationalism in Ireland. More nationalist seats than unionist seats for the first time in a while.
Yeah, which could actually end up with them getting their parliament back together.
Which means that we might still have gay marriage and abortion in Ireland.
Well, no, because that's already gone through.
Well, we might keep that.
Oh, right, yeah, because they weren't sitting to stop it at the time.
Because I think Sinn Féin and SDLP are pretty left-wing, so they should probably keep that.
Yeah, which is always good when there was somebody threw a grenade at a police car the other week.
I mean, I'm
slightly military, isn't it? But
yeah, I'm uncomfortable with Sinn Féin. It's sort of that they were a former terrorist organisation.
Yeah, but so is the Rebel Alliance.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to Wednesday.
But it's sort of I disagree with the violence there.
Yeah.
And that they killed a fair amount of people. But it's sort of, with regards to Northern Ireland, you kind of have to cast that away, because then you'd be saying that all the politicians there, like a lot of the politicians there, are
terrorists.
Yeah. Because
just in other people's countries.
DUP, whilst it's not the same name, I think it was Ulster Defence Force, UDF. A lot of the people from that probably would have supported that, and they were also very violent. And I imagine had a fair amount of support from the British Army, which is probably why people don't talk about them so much. But anyway, I really need to go for a piss.
Yes, I can tell. Can we stop?
Yes, we will stop. Okay. Yep, that's fine. I've been Fireball.
I've been the Orbiter.
And this has
I'm
been
going to sit here and make him piss
kind
himself.
of shut up. An election special, I think.
Yeah.
Bye.
Retroactive. Do I get to do the outro without you?
We did the outro just now.
Yeah, but do I get to do the post outro? Okay, he's gone. So I'm just going to say thanks a fucking bunch, England.
This podcast is part of the After Dark Podcast Network.